Hey, April Friday. This week, US politicians started looking into banning OnePlus. I think this might finally be the year of the Linux desktop, and we got loads of leaks of the Samsung Trifold phone. Welcome to the Friday Checkout, and as usual, timestamps are down below. This video was sponsored by Insta360. Okay, for my first story of the week, OnePlus might get a ban in the US. A bipartisan duo of lawmakers now apparently wants the US Commerce Department to probe the Chinese smartphone maker OnePlus to see if it poses security concerns. Apparently, a commercial company was contacted to investigate and found that, quote, these devices may potentially collect and transmit extensive user data, including sensitive personal information to servers under China's jurisdiction without explicit user consent. I mean, I guess every device may potentially collect user data like that and send it to wherever they want, so that's pretty weak. No actual evidence was found, or at least none was given to the public, which is what we've more or less seen in other cases like this as well. That is really frustrating, but yeah, a deeper investigation should follow now. The lawmakers have tasked the Information and Communications Technology and Services Program to determine user data types collected by OnePlus devices without explicit user consent, including potential transfers of sensitive personal information and screenshots. These are just two lawmakers for now, so this isn't a very advanced proposal, but this is bipartisan right now, and if you extrapolate this logic a little bit further, then weird things start happening. Like, sure, if there's proof of wrongdoing, then that should definitely be tackled, but for now, this looks like the lawmakers simply selected OnePlus for being Chinese. If you take that thought to its logical conclusion, then Motorola and many other brands should be investigated and maybe banned as well for what they might one day do. Given how uncompetitive the US smartphone market is right now already, removing brands like OnePlus feels like it's gonna make things even more boring. Okay, for my second story of the week, I think this might finally be the year of the Linux desktop. Am I exaggerating a bit? Yes, but still. On StatCounter, Linux just broke the 5% mark for desktop operating systems in the US for the first time ever, which is small, but the growth lately is there and it's been relentless. Meanwhile, in other markets like Germany, for example, you get even higher numbers at well over 5%, and generally this trend seems to be the same everywhere. Now, I don't want to hype this too much, but I do think that there's a kind of snowball effect here where the more people use the operating system, the more there's support for games and hardware and whatever, and then that brings more people into the platform, and so on and so forth. The rise of SteamOS and political tensions and so on have all helped, I guess, but I think the biggest driver is that the end-of-life campaign for Windows 10 just isn't going great for Microsoft. As of June, there were still about as many users of Windows 10 as there were of Windows 11 worldwide. That is hundreds of millions of people who still haven't moved, despite Microsoft telling them repeatedly that they have to, or their machine will soon become insecure. The end-of-life date is very soon, on the 14th of October, that's just a couple of months away, so this really shows a lot of resistance. With the requirement for TPM chips and other security features, the upgrade is not very easy for older machines, and so campaigns like End of 10 have emerged, with a bunch of Linux-adjacent organizations actively targeting Windows 10 users to try to get them to switch to Linux now. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them. Now, to soften the blow, Microsoft has recently announced offering its extended security update program to consumers who want to stay on Windows 10 longer. This was originally aimed at enterprise users, but now it's coming to regular consumers who are unwilling to do the upgrade as well. There are three ways to get it, the first of which is syncing your PC with Microsoft, including your PC settings. The second is redeeming 1,000 Microsoft reward points from your account. Or the third is paying $30 per PC once for 1 more year of support. Those are obviously designed to be intentionally easy hurdles that even regular users can figure out if they really want to, but many people seem to be choosing the path of Linux instead. Okay, and for my third story of the week, the Samsung Trifold phone got leaked multiple times, revealing many details. The animations that you're looking at were found by Android authorities' APK teardown specialist, Assemble Debug in One UI 8, and they give us an early look at the device. In the software, it's labeled as the Multi-Fold 7, though it's more likely to be called something like the Galaxy G Fold 7. And interestingly, there appears to be an outer display on the middle panel, while the two side panels seem to fold in onto the middle. This is quite similar to the Flex G prototype that we've seen from Samsung Display before, but quite different from Huawei's Trifold, which only has one big display, and then you fold that up into a kind of S shape, and then that lets you use basically a portion of the big display as your outer display. On the one hand, the Huawei design is obviously more elegant, you only have one display, it saves space and money and everything, but I really feel uncomfortable about having a folding display exposed to the outside in your pocket and on your table and everything. I think that will get scratched, that display has to be soft by definition, and so I think I personally prefer the Samsung design. The fact that these animations are already in One UI 8 means that the device will launch soon, and we'll hopefully get at least a teaser at the Unpacked event next week. Meanwhile, the South Korean publication The Bell suggests that this phone will start production in September, with a launch date expected in Q4 of 2025. The inner display is set to feature a 10-inch OLED panel, while the cameras should include a 200-megapixel primary shooter. And to finish, there are two pieces of bad news. One, it might cost something like $3,000, which I guess that's more or less how much the Huawei costs as well. And two, it might only launch in Korea and China. Anyway, moving on to the release monitor, Nothing launched the Headphone Ones, which are kind of almost flagship over-ears with the usual quirky Nothing design language. At $299, they slot in a bit below the usual Sony and Bose models, both in terms of price and performance. And also new is the Nothing Phone 3 for $799, which has an almost flagship Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 chip, 3 50-megapixel cameras, plus also a new Matrix dot-style display on the back. Interestingly, the 5150 mAh battery has a silicon carbon anode, making this one of the first non-Chinese models with the tech, and the phone should also come to the US for once. Pretty cool. Meanwhile, still with phones, Honor launched the Magic V5, which is now the thinnest foldable by a hair, if you don't count the camera bump, that is. You get all the usual flagship specs, and I really hope to see this at IFA this year. As usual, the links to all the newly announced products are in the description, and now let's move on to the brief, where we have to start with some layoffs. Specifically, Microsoft is again laying off as many as 9,000 employees in its latest round, including at Xbox and Blizzard, for example, and is giving up on its mobile game called Warcraft Rumble. Oof. Then also this week, the Swiss firm Proton has sued Apple in the US over its App Store rules, Apple's 30% commission, and also its forced in-app purchasing. They're basically making the same arguments that we've seen in other antitrust lawsuits against Apple recently, and so let's see how this goes. And next, Spotify will let users personalize the genre of their Discovery Weekly playlists. Spotify is adding genre toggles like pop and funk to help users steer their weekly mixes in the first big change to the feature in 10 years. Pretty cool. And in more good news, Cloudflare introduced pay-per-crawl, which lets content owners charge AI crawlers for access and says that it will now block AI crawlers by default unless the site owner allows them. A huge part of the internet runs through Cloudflare, and if there's any company that should be able to detect AI crawlers automatically, it should also be them, and so this could be a real big change. And next, an investigation by Sean at The Verge figured out how and why Nintendo deliberately broke USB-C authentication to basically not allow third-party docks or connections to VR headsets and so on. That said, one company called Ntank has already sniffed the packages and has actually managed a little workaround, so I guess Nintendo isn't infinitely powerful. Okay, and since the Prime Days are coming up, I'd like to show you a great deal that's already live right now. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2, the high-end action camera that I've taken with me on many trips, including diving deep underwater and got many of my favorite shots with, is now on sale for Prime Days until the 15th of July. This is a camera that has many things going for it, first of which is the really clever design. Love the large display that is bright enough to be seen even in the direct sun through a case, and also can flip up so you can actually see yourself while filming at various angles. Love the fact that the camera itself is water resistant up to 12 meters, and also that you can get a dive case if you want to go deeper. But of course, most important is image quality, which, as you can see, is excellent. I typically like to show dive footage to illustrate this because of how difficult cameras usually find compensating for the color shifts and the lack of light when you're deep underwater. So this is usually a really tough test, but the Ace Pro 2 does super well. It immediately recognizes what settings you're in and it autocorrects for it. Doing well in low light conditions is actually one of the main selling points Insta360 is pushing, and I can certainly see why. For an action camera, these shots look great. All of this is because you have a huge 1/1.3-inch sensor paired with high-quality Leica lenses and also advanced AI chips for better image processing. The result is that you can go up to 8K for maximum resolution, or also something like 4K 120 frames per second if you want smooth, slow-mo shots. Stabilization is also superb on the camera, so I really like using this for biking shots, for example, as it just smoothes out basically all the bumps from my rides really nicely. And if you buy one until the 15th of July, you'll get 18% off the Ace Pro 2 for Prime Day. Plus, if you're one of the first 20 people who buy through my link, you'll also get a bonus mini 2-in-1 tripod as a gift too. That's a really handy accessory. Meanwhile, Insta360 also has discounts on a bunch of their other cameras that I've linked in the description below as well. So happy shooting, and I'll see you next Friday.